This with the Seattle branch of Black Lives Matter brought a Bernie Sanders political rally to a halt yesterday. Those demonstrators came on the stage and they interrupted the candidate as he was speaking and essentially shut the event down.
I was going to tell Bernie how racist this city is, filled with its progressives, but you already did it for me. Thank you.
Let's bring in Melina Abdullah, professor of Pan-African Studies at California State University in Los Angeles and also an organizer for the Black Lives Matter, of course, that movement which grew out of that popular hashtag. So with a welcome to you, what, first of all, do you think of what happened in Seattle yesterday?
Well, I think that it's really important that we take space whenever we can. Black Lives Matter and the systematic assassination of black people at the hands of the state is a top issue for black folks. However, it remains at the bottom of the political agenda of elected officials, including those who we consider to be liberal and progressive.
So do you think there's any fallout from that? I mean, with regard to the candidate that was chosen yesterday, I understand why taking advantage of an opportunity, but Bernie Sanders?
Well, Bernie Sanders, like his other running his opposition, has not elevated Black Lives Matter in the way that we need it to be elevated. This is a matter of life and death for us. This is a regularity in our communities. We're now at the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Mike Brown. We're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Ezell Ford here in Los Angeles. And action has not been taken by this system that we live under. And so we need to make sure that everybody understands that this is an imperative issue. This is an issue that is of central importance to the black community. And simply because you're not in the black community doesn't mean that you get to ignore us. And so wherever we need to take space, we will take space.
Melina, I do want to ask you more about the Michael Brown anniversary in just a moment. But may I just ask, has anybody either reached out to Bernie Sanders, people within his campaign and organization, or vice versa? Have they reached out to leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement at all to discuss what happened?
Not that I know of. I know that there had been some earlier preliminary and peripheral conversations, but as far as I know, there has been no substantive conversation about how Bernie Sanders can incorporate Black Lives Matter and incorporate this issue of state-sanctioned violence against black people as a centerpiece of his campaign.
Okay, the Black Lives Matter movement relative to Michael Brown's shooting, again, the 1-year anniversary today, how did that particular shooting spark
Brown. So there was a kind of an institutional approach to policing that placed black people in a constant state of oppression and violence. And so the murder of Mike Brown was an individual instance. However, it was also kind of something that resonated outwards and that sparked a real rebellion and revolution in Ferguson and globally. And so for the last year, we've been doing organizing work around the globe, really with increased intensity, to remember that black people are killed every 28 hours by a state that's supposed to be protecting our lives. And instead, it's a state that really kind of targets our oppression and targets us for death. If we think about the stories in the news that have become routine on almost a daily basis, it's exhausting to us that we are killed with such impunity by a state that's supposed to be for all of us, including black people.
Is there anything that has changed in your mind, Melina, for the positive in this last year?
I think the greatest change is that the people have power. We're recognizing our own power to create change. And so black people coming together and allies coming together with us and being willing to stand up against the state and say this is not the kind of country that we want to live in, and we have the power to vision something new, to imagine something new, and to build what it is we want to live under.
And in that vision, is there a specific presidential candidate on either side of the aisle who you think aligns themselves most with what the vision is of Black Lives Matter?
Well, when I think about who's running for president, most of them represent this system of white supremacist, heteronormative, patriarchal capitalism. And so no one intrinsically or on their own really uplifts Black Lives Matter. That said, it's the role of engaged populations to challenge those who claim to represent them, to represent us in the way that we want to be represented. And so that's what the taking of space is about. That's what disruptions are about. That's what dialogue is about, to challenge those who want to represent us or who claim to represent us to actually represent us.
All right, Melina Abdullah from Cal State Los Angeles, thank you so much.
Thank you.